In the last session, we understood the business problem. You can find the link for the same on the top right corner. Now that we've understood the problem and we talked about the target segments a little bit back there, in this particular session, we're going to deep dive into understanding the customers better and model them. So here's two personas, roles, and goals. All right. So what is a persona? Sarah, the salesperson. She's a salesperson, and her goal is that she needs to sign on more customers with confidence, right? So salesperson is her role, and her goal is to sign on more customers. Now, when we put a persona this way, it helps us to empathize with Sarah and think about what she wants, what she may not want, and so on, right? Now let's look at another set of personas that could exist in a project. So we have Tim, the tech manager, who wants to easily support users, Sandra, the salesperson, and she wants to maximize revenue from existing customers. We have Andy, the admin assistant, Sarah, the salesperson, and Curtis, the customer. Now there you could be in situations where you might come across multiple personas for a single product, because all these users may tend to use your product. Generally, you should always base personas based on real user research and real user data. But in the absence of that, it is a good idea to speak to any particular person who may be closest to the customers. It could be a salesperson, it could be the product owner, product manager, whatever, right? So in our project, the way we will, yes, so as you rightly pointed out, we see Sarah and Sandra have the same role, but they have different goals, right? So in our project, we have prioritized all these personas in a way that we want to first serve the needs of Curtis, the customer, and then Sarah, the salesperson, which means we want a salesperson persona who wants to sign on more customers maybe because of the broader business strategy. And you might be in different situations where you will have a lot of personas, but you may have to prioritize them. And it is a good idea to prioritize them as well, which can then link to the wider business goal. Yeah. All right. So like we said earlier, persona is a model of the intended user. And it is always based on a real user research. Again, why do we do personas? To empathize more so that we can step into our customers' shoes and then model the product accordingly. So we need to know what are their knowledge and skills, what are their typical behaviors, what are their frustrations, what do they generally tend to do, right? This helps us if we have like a flip chart in our working space. It always helps us to go back to that and see not what would I do, because as developing the products, we tend to think of ourselves as users as well, but what would Curtis, the customer, do, because their needs and our needs would be totally different.
Yeah, and so depending on the kind of project, you will create your personas in different formats. Now, this is an example of a persona sanitized with client details, but representative of a real person. And you'll notice that all of the things that Richa talked about are contained in this persona. So for example, we know a little bit about Priya, what job she performs, the kind of experience she has, the kind of tools that she prefers using, what does she want to achieve? And what are her pain points trying to achieve that? Who does she work with? And what does a day in her life potentially look like? And what is it that motivates her and keeps her coming to work? And then, of course, certain things that Priya has told us that we want to take note of, which helps us build empathy with her as a user. So what I'm trying to tell you is that your persona, depending on the project, could look very different. But again, it continues to have most of the same elements that Richa spoke about in that previous visual that we shared with you. Now, just to reiterate again with another example, multiple personas can share a very, very similar role in the system. And I'm taking the example of the wildly popular cooking show, MasterChef. Now, everyone who comes to MasterChef from the perspective of the MasterChef system is a MasterChef aspirant, right? Uh, but at the same time, depending on the kind of backgrounds they come from and what they want to achieve as a consequence of the show, either participating or winning, could be wildly different. So, for example, Hannah, the home cook, might want to write a cookbook. On the other hand, Marty, the mechanic, is a cooking enthusiast. He probably wants to change careers. And then Ashley, who's already an amateur chef, maybe he's just working as an assistant. He probably wants to start his own restaurant. So different personas playing the same role, but they have different goals. And you can imagine this for pretty much any product that you're trying to build.
Right. And here, this segregation would actually help MasterChef prioritize and build their strategy around, hey, what kind of aspirants do I want to target for? I can be open, but maybe my business strategy is I want to target more of amateur chefs and the home cooks, but not people who are looking to change their careers. And that could depend, but just this segregation would help MasterChef prioritize to develop their own strategy.
Indeed. So moving on, how do we construct a persona? And just like any other tool in Agile, there are multiple ways to skin the cat. One of the tools that you could find quite useful is an empathy map. And an empathy map is basically a construction of a persona that you embark on after you've collected some user research data, but well before you start defining product requirements, because then if you're defining product requirements without necessarily modeling your users, you're probably putting the cart before the horse. So you get your entire team into a room, you get your stakeholders as well as developers into a room and try to brainstorm based on your user research. And some of it is a brainstorm, some of it is just collating the research as you've seen it, about, okay, what is it that this user is thinking and feeling, which includes their hopes, concerns, fears, motivations, conflicts. What do they see in their environments? What does their workplace look like? If they are already using this product or a competing product, what are the first things that they notice? What are they also looking for beyond what they notice, right? What drives them to use it on a regular basis? There are things that your users will tell you. For example, you saw the quotes that we had from Pooja, right, about her work. Those are things which you would include in saying and doing. You would also include things around what does their day look like. You saw we had that in her key activities. And then what are the influences for this person? Are they likely to be influenced by friends? Do they listen to feedback? Do they look at other people's recommendations and opinions? And then most importantly, and you will see this when we start talking about value propositions as well, is the pains and the gains. So what are their most important pain points that you'd like to be able to address? And how is it that you're going to be able to help them achieve their goals, right? And getting an articulation of that helps you find the best fitment for the kind of solution that you're trying to sell or bring to the market. What do you think, Richa? Does that explain empathy maps?
Absolutely. And generally, empathy maps are a powerful tool to empathize. And then like it can be like a very powerful prerequisite to build a persona, because only when you empathize with the user, then you can like build your persona in a very structured way.
Cool. So let's move on to the next video. And Richa and I will do a bit of a role play to show you how to build an empathy map.